Lloyd, thanks for joining us. Really excited to have you on.
Yeah, no problem, mate. Anytime. Like, always happy to talk about us flappers that wear gloves. So yeah, anytime.
Talk to me before we start about, goalkeeper or coach during this time. First of all, as a coach, and then probably as a student. Your contact with your goalkeepers at the minute. What's been going on? What type of stuff you send them? What type of conversations?
Yeah, it's difficult. We had one goalkeeper in Florida, and then my other three goalkeepers were in Canada, Colorado, and Las Vegas. They were all back home. So even if we did want to physically do stuff, it wouldn't have been possible. So a lot of it has been this kind of scenario, video calling. I don't know if people were able to jump on some of the IDP stuff that I discussed last week. We've been going over that with the goalkeepers. We've been giving them individual goalkeepers to go and just watch and pick ideas from. Anything from their own performances to watching, some of the better ones out there. Like your Oblaks and your Onana at Ajax and Matty Ryan at Brighton. So we've picked different goalkeepers that they can relate to in different ways, that they can go and pick apart. But then also on the physical side, just giving them ideas of essentially things that they can do by themselves, either to keep their fitness up or hand-eye coordination, or even stuff without a ball. It might be a tennis ball, or people might have seen Ash firing ping pong balls at herself with a ping pong ball machine. So the hard thing has been is that everyone's situation is so different. Like, we've got Brittany, who's in Denver and is dealing with snowstorms and a tennis court that she can train on. And then you've got Lainey, who's in Vegas, who's got, a beaten up bit of grass out the back of a house that she can train on. And everyone's situation is so different. So it's almost individualizing what effect we can have on them within this time, which has been tough, but it's been challenging. It's been a new way to do things. So it's been challenging for sure.
Brilliant. Okay, do you want to get started?
Yeah. I feel like just to start, I think periodization is a little bit of a buzzword. So the way that I would better describe it is load management and understanding what our goalkeepers are putting themselves through on a week-to-week basis. So, we'll start talking about that a little bit. So I think the main thing for me when planning out a week or planning out my goals for certain things to hit is, what do we want to achieve by the end of the week? And what do we need to fit into that week? So, I've got my building blocks here. That is me building the week. And I just want to highlight a few things that kind of proves that we have a lot that we are trying to fit into a week. And that's just a few. There's, if you look at each one of these set pieces, for instance, you could do everything from defending throw-ins to penalty kicks and everything in between. That might be 2 or 3 days worth of work separated throughout the week. There is a lot going into our week. So with that in mind, that we've got so much that we're trying to cram in, like, this is for me are the main goals. Obviously reflect. And I know during this time we've all been doing a lot of reflecting, and hopefully as coaches we've been able to go in and review our sessions and see if we're getting the results out of them that we want. We obviously need to physically prepare, whether it be gym work or the technical components that we put into our training sessions within the game. This is a massive one for me, the mental preparation. I think the higher up the ladder that we go as coaches or as players, the bigger part of our game that this is. Obviously the tactical preparation, which is mainly being integrated in with the team, and how that head coach wants to play and how they want to structure the specifics for that game plan. And then at the end of the day, it's this is what is everything: winning, getting 3 points at the end of the week. And then hopefully that cycle starts again and another 3 points happens. So this is, again, just a visual for us to see how much we are trying to cram in a very limited amount of time. So this is a diagram of how we structured our week last season. This is a very brief diagram. So essentially, if we played on the Saturday, our Sunday would be a recovery day for our goalkeeper that played the 90 minutes or played a significant amount of minutes. And then our non-starters, the other three goalkeepers, they would come in and we would do a heavier session, but a heavy session that evolved around their needs, their individual needs, or things that they felt like they hadn't got during the week. Because obviously sometimes during training with the week, the starter takes priority. That might be within a tactical session to get integration with the team, that maybe the back four that they're going to be playing with. So Sunday is a real heavy coaching day for me that allows me to give attention to the goalkeeper or goalkeepers that didn't play. And that would be a red day or a real light day. So I've kind of gone green, red, and yellow for my heaviness of load with my days. Monday would be a technical session because in my eyes it's still a recovery session, a lighter session there with all of our goalkeepers in. And I've got some examples of this in a minute of a light technical session. And then Tuesday for me would be a very heavy day. It would either be power specific or it would have a lot of impact. So for me, Tuesday would maybe be a great day to do like a block-in session where you're getting a lot of physical impact. And, if you're blocking or spreading, that's obviously a lot of exposure that you're putting your body to within certain scenarios. So that would be a heavy day for me, a lot of repetition. And then the way that we structured it last year in Orlando was Wednesday, that we would give the guys Wednesday off and we'd have a 2-day lead into the game. It's something that as a staff we've talked about maybe changing, and maybe we would have Monday off and have a 4-day lead in, or there's a lot of different concepts that we've touched on as a staff, but we felt, and it's something that I'll touch on later in the presentation, we felt that because of the heat and the humidity that we have to deal with in Orlando, that having a midweek break allowed us to control the curve. That's such an ironic term to use at the moment with coronavirus and everything that's going on, but that allowed us to steady the ship a little bit with this day off. And then Thursday for me is, and that's by me writing opponent related, that's by no means saying that we're not including what the opponent does in these sessions here, but would be heavy on scenarios and a lot of crossing. I like to do a crossing session at least once a week. Mainly that might be down to the goalkeepers that I'm working with. That's something that they like. And I like doing a crossing session match day -2. I'll touch on that again later. I know a lot of people would do a general crossing session on the Friday, but I much prefer it 2 days before. And again, I'll touch on that in a little bit. And then Friday would maybe be a slower pace because, again, I'm trying to control that curve. But with reaction saves, and the beginning of the session would be very much the goalkeepers would kind of know where the service is going. And then by the end of the session, reaction saves, which is obviously they may know it's going over their shoulder, but they don't know which shoulder it's going over. And it's just quick movements that get them feeling sharp for the game. And then hopefully Saturday we get the result that we're looking for. That's the physical lows of the week. As well as that, on top of that, we have our goalkeeper meetings. So Monday would be an analysis meeting with me and the starting goalkeeper. I've found that I get a better response when I just sit with that goalkeeper that has performed than the whole group evaluating that one person's performance from the game. That may be different with our situations. it might work better with all the goalkeepers reflecting on that one person's performance. But for me, with the personalities that I have, I much prefer just sitting down with that one person and going over their game. And then if there's maybe a trend within that, I can use that clipping for another day with everyone. Tuesday or maybe even Wednesday would be individual review of any trends that I'm seeing within training within those goalkeepers, technical trends, tactical trends, physical trends, which would be with myself and the strength and conditioning coach. I'll gather the week of training and I'll review it myself and then highlight any trends that I'm seeing that I want to go over with them. So we'll just schedule times in and around gym sessions or things like that they're doing. And then Thursday, Friday, we'll go over opponents' trends. So, for instance, if we're playing against a Megan Rapinoe, she plays left wing. She likes to cut inside and she likes to cut inside and shoot. If we're playing against the Tobin Heath, she's a dribbler. She likes to beat people 1v1, get to end line and serve. And what does that service look like? So this would be a review on pictures that we're likely to see on the game. I don't want to dive too much into this scientific data because I'm not a sports scientist. I'm a goalkeeper coach. But this kind of review gives you a good understanding of how our kind of week looks as far as loading. This is just a general date from last year. So again, this is, like I said, more of a recovery session at the beginning of the week. Again, they're still mentally recovering as well as physically recovering. Again, a harder, heavier day here on Tuesday. Drop it down to a day off. Thursday, back up there again. And then Friday, just bringing that load down. And this is game day here. This is an accumulative team data on this lot, but it actually reflects kind of nicely with what the goalkeepers do. I just didn't really have time to draw my own graph up. This is what our sports scientist sent us, but it's very, very similar. Actually, the loads of the goalkeepers were higher on this day. They're up here in 900. And sometimes I think for a goalkeeper coach, something to be wary of is you may have a light session planned. So, for instance, let's say on Tuesday I have a lighter session planned for one reason or another, but then the team wants the goalkeepers for a finishing exercise. Then their data is going to go massively up. And I think there's a lot of things that will affect an individual's data. And that might be something as simple as the number of goalkeepers you have in an exercise. If you're doing a finishing exercise that is a 4-save repetition and there's only 2 goalkeepers, they're going to get a lot of reps in a short amount of time with restricted rest. So if you can get in communication with the coaching staff earlier on what the plan for the session is, then you may be able to bring in more goalkeepers to try and level out those physical loads. So I'm just going to play some examples of, hopefully these are all playing and you can see them pretty good. These are a clip from preseason. This would be an example of a lighter training day. I think something to highlight is that the service, it's known where the service is going to go. They know they're diving to the right. They know they're getting a volley into their hands. So now we can be more specific on their movements. These are just a few variations of the drill from a light day. So these are some of the progressions that we'd have throughout the session. But yeah, this is a lighter technical day, sufficient rest. These are probably reps of 6 or 8 touches for the goalkeeper that are getting amongst their rotation. Here we have a heavier day example. Are those videos going to play? Yep. So is this one going to play? There we go. Boom. So a heavier day example, higher reps, unannounced, just for your guys' visual, I know this is a little bit crazy. There's 6 videos going on at the same time. Within this session, I've got a GoPro attached to my chest and then a tripod set up. It's kind of cool for the coaching moments when we go over the video, that sometimes you'll see something from one video that you don't see from another. And what our analyst does, he tries to tie it up and sync the video. He didn't do a great job on this session of syncing it, but again, gives good visuals. For me, high reps, a lot of impact on hitting the floor. We're working on near post headers here, which is, you'll see the kind of way that I've grown the session a little bit, hopefully. So we've been working on near post headers. This is actually, these clips from this session are actually at the end of a complete session. So we stayed out at the end of practice to work on this. So again, that gives you an idea of a heavy day. And then this one, I kind of wanted to put an open question out there for you guys is, when you're doing a crossing session, is it a heavy day or is it a light day? So just to give some relevance to this session, this is us preparing to play Portland. They load the front post on some of their set pieces. So this is why I wanted to replicate these dummies at the near post. I again wanted to incorporate crossing generally. They also have a left back that is right footed. So hopefully this doesn't play. So this drill at the bottom here is me replicating Megan Klingenberg, cutting onto her right foot and in swinging the ball. Trust me, not all my service was this good. I had to scroll through my whole session to find one good cross. But I think the big question for me is crossing session a heavy day or a light day? And I think that totally depends on the individuals that you have within your session. So what I mean by that is Ash is 34 years old. She's had ACL surgery on both knees. She's had other injuries that may be affected by jumping and landing constantly. So one thing I've learned from working with Ash is that her body needs that 2-day lead in from a crossing session to go into a game. Because there were times early that we were working together that I would do my crossing session on a Friday and she would feel it in her body going into the game, which is what I really don't want. I want them fresh as they can be going into Saturday. I want their mind clear of any pain or any fuzziness. So one thing I learned that I just incorporated with all my goalkeepers now is a crossing session will always come 2 days before the game. Now, if Friday comes around and they're feeling good and they really want to hit on something extra that may involve some jumping and some landing, then yeah, of course we're going to incorporate that. But as a general theme within my sessions, Thursday will be a crossing day. So this is just something else that I wanted us to consider as far as preparation for the week and a management of loads. So back in 2017, this was the beginning of our season. As you can see, not a great start to the season with the first 4 games, 2 points out of 4 games. We then beat North Carolina. So this was at home. So the very next game, we flew to Seattle and we played on turf. So I just want us to look at this data real quick. So I believe that this was away, home. Sorry, away, home. I might be wrong with that. But regardless, these 4 games were all played on grass. So Spirit 1-1, North Carolina 3-1 loss, FC Kansas City, RIP 1-1, and then North Carolina 3-1. All of these games were played on grass. If this was in Portland, I can't remember. I think it was. That would have been played on turf. But the lead into our game against Seattle here was all played on grass. We then fly across the country. So you've got a time difference. You've got a tired body. And then we go play on turf. 20 minutes into that game on turf, Ash tore her quad. in 4 places, I think it was. So when that injury happened, it opened up a door for me to reflect on what could have caused that quad injury. Was it just a freak injury? Could well be. But I then went back and looked, and this was our lead into Seattle on her kicking. And something that I know a lot of goalkeepers like to work on their kicking. It's an area of their game that they always want to see improvement in. And it's something that I know this year, me and Ash were spending a lot of time after training going over our kicking and kicking for distance and hitting diagonal balls. And honestly, I think the extra reps in training on kicking and then this really heavy day of game day of 17 kicks, it's almost double, like this graph here, it's almost double the amount that, well, it's more than double the amount that she had to kick long in any other game. So did that play a factor? I honestly believe it did, and it allowed me to reflect as a coach on when we are playing on turf or playing on grass, do I have to change the way I mold my session during the week so that the heavy load and the impact of planting your leg to kick isn't as much? When we're playing across the country, when we're flying to Utah and it's in and it's in a different time zone, and we're playing Portland and Seattle, and it's in different time zone. Do I have to be aware of what my training sessions look like leading into that? So, for instance, if we play Portland, and I know we're flying to Portland on Thursday, we play Saturday, and I've got a training session on Tuesday. Do I go heavy on Tuesday like I normally would? Maybe I have to taper that down a little bit because I know we're about to fly across the country 2 days later. I don't want them having heavy legs on a flight. Then we've got to do a pre-training sessions on turf. So maybe I have to manage that load. I'm by no means saying that us as coaches should go and count every kick that our goalkeeper does. I mean, maybe you have some minions that can do that counting for you. But it was just interesting data for me to look over post-injury to see, is there something that I could have signaled earlier that would have been an indicator that we're doing too much kicking or we're now at high risk of an injury happening. So here's a little picture of me thinking about my training session. I've talked a little bit about some of the considerations, but here are some maybe some obvious ones and some maybe not so obvious ones. Time that you have with the goalkeepers and time that you have with the team. I think it's something massive to consider. If you know the team is going to be out there for 90 minutes and you've got 20 minutes of that 90 minutes, do you really need to go super hard? Maybe not. Maybe you need to go lighter. But if you have a 45-minute with the goalkeepers, you might push them a little harder, knowing that at the end of that session, they've maybe got 20 minutes with the team and it's a phase of play that they're not doing a lot. So they can get there, and they're not physically going to get a complete recovery, but you can go harder to then lighter within that session. So duration with the team, I think, is a big one. The day of the week is obviously a massive consideration, again, when managing the loads. For those that don't know, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, this is an RPE scale. So how heavy and how hard that those individuals have felt those sessions have been in previous training sessions. Again, I'll talk on that a little bit more later. And then this is something that not all of us will have to adapt to, but the temperature while we are training in Orlando is ridiculous at times. It is hot. It is humid. You sweat a lot. You're losing a lot of your salt content. Your lactic acid is building up a lot. And again, that's not stuff that I'm an expert at all. But for me, when planning my sessions, I have to look at what the temperature is like in Orlando every day. And for some of you, it might be the other end of the scale. You might be coaching in Chicago in January and it's freezing. So do you have to spend longer warming up, or do you have to warm up inside for longer before you go outside? So the weather for me is another huge consideration. So RPE, for those of us that don't know what RPE is, it's again a sports science term, the rate of perceived exertion. So for a simpleton like myself, it's basically how hard did that goalkeeper feel that session was. So for me, like when I plan every session in my head, I want to have the RPE that I think the goalkeepers are going to have for each session. So for instance, like I said, Tuesday might be a heavy session. I want to get that in the 7 to 9 range at times. On a Friday, I don't want that to be super heavy on their legs. So if I'm getting a 9 on a Friday, I've probably done something wrong as a coach. Now, again, like I said earlier, there may be extra factors. The rest of the team might have stayed behind and done extra. But as far as managing your starting goalkeeper, the person that is going to play the game at the weekend, I think if you can have a target in your head, what you want them to feel like at the end of the session, I think it really helps as far as how many reps you do in each drill, how long you spend before you hit your progression, what that progression looks like. What are they doing when they're not in the goal? Like, are they striking? Are they involved in a movement if it's a crossing exercise? How realistic is that exercise? So I think it's really key, the RPE, because another part of it as well, it also allows you a little bit into their mind, how they're feeling that week, because their RPE might not only be affected by the training session, it might be other stuff that's going on. So again, this is a good little visual on this purple line is actual RPE data from one of my weeks. So again, this was I guess if a 6 is a pretty standard number. We then jump up to an 8 on the Tuesday, hopefully down to a 0 or something really low on the Wednesday. Jump back up again a little bit. I'm now closer to the line I want to be. Light session, and then the game this week they rated pretty heavy. So something to consider here is, if this is the numbers that my goalkeeper has given me through the week, and I look at their RPE from the game and it's a 9, how does that affect how I plan my session for next week? Like, do I have to make adjustments? And I think that's massive, because this could be their RPE of 9 could be that they had a lot of action, right? That could be one of the indicators. The other indicator could be that they just didn't perform well, that they conceded a bad goal that has pushed that number higher. So this RPE could be a reflection of stress as well. So for me, I might have to start. I might not jump up on the Tuesday as much. I might try and stay level on the Tuesday with my RPE, and then just stay level throughout, and then dip here. So there's a lot of consideration and a lot of things that will open your eyes through the session that necessarily isn't miles covered or accelerations and decelerations. So here's a little example, and just something that I wanted to highlight is that the purple boxes and the blue boxes are two different individuals. So here, this is from pre-season, from two of my goalkeepers, and this is from in-season, from two of my goalkeepers. Obviously, the person in purple is the starting goalkeeper at that time.
I've got a couple of questions for you, and then we've got some good ones from the crowd.
Yep.
So I've got a couple of clips for you. I just showed. So I want you to talk through what a game realistic, like where does routine, where you're just firing, you mentioned there are 20 balls, they know where they're coming from. Where does routine and how do you prepare a situation like this one here from Pepe Reina? Like walk us through. I suppose walk us through what you see. Oh, hold on.
Still going on. Raphael. find a way through to Giggs. Cooks into the far post. Reina, Raphael with a shot. Berbatov. Somehow Reina again. Raphael. Reina yet again. And then
Goalkeeper.
it's by Patrice Evra, and it's a corner.
So,
Liverpool. I mean, I think this is great defending. Whatever they're getting in the way, it's the wrong shoe. Reina a couple of times.
so that's a fantastic clip, by the way, Gary. That's like a 9 save rep. It's been really interesting. Like I've been in a lot of conversations with a lot of coaches that are much better coaches than I am, and I think that the way that goalkeeper coaching is going now is that sessions have way more flow about them. And what I mean by that, like, is there a percentage of time that the ball is rolling within the session? I've heard some coaches, they try and have like 65% of the time the ball rolling within their session, and then they'll have their analyst break down, was the ball actually live for those sessions? So I think for me, like within that little clip, there was probably like 4 or 5 different phases where like the crosses come in, punch, readjust, ball then gets played around the top of the 18, another cross, and then you got the split save and the scramble. So I think for me, can you replicate that scenario within training with either bodies or mannequins but I think the key thing is that every action that you do has an effect on something. So like something as simple as Reina's came and punched that ball. Well, I think too often, like we'll do a punching session and we'll go punch the ball and then the exercise is dead. But the reality of it is if that was a game, that ball is live still and another phase is about to happen. So I think it's about creating exercises where multiple decisions are happening and there's multiple phases within those decisions. And every action that the goalkeeper takes has an effect on something that is happening within that session. So I think yeah, that's the way that I'd answer about incorporating it into training. But I think also some of it is understanding your goalkeeper and what they want and when they want those things. And it's some of the discussions that I've been a part of. Like Ash, for instance, she wants a technical announced session for at least the first 10, 15 minutes at the start of most sessions. So that then maybe becomes difficult doing a more expanded scenario part of my session if I've only got 20 minutes with the goalkeepers. So it's about managing when I fit in those scenarios within the week, or can I do the technical stuff inside, or can I manage my the way I structure things a little different so that she gets what she needs, but I also produce decision making within my sessions.
Yeah, on your presentation that you delivered when we were down in Florida was on different types of goalkeepers. I found it really, really interesting. Again, I have another clip for you here. Ashlyn was nearly in a Save of the Week contest every week. Her ability to get let me ask you this: with this clip here, how much of this is trained with the UC area? Like that's what we worked on, and how much of this is, I suppose, this skill set of the goalkeeper?
Music choice is interesting.
Hinkle getting forward. Great ball in towards the back toes. There's the first touch and another spectacular save from Harris. Ashlyn Harris been absolutely magnificent for Orlando in the opening.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, there's things that I see that we talk about in practice or we talk about in video review a lot. And I think the most important part for me in that clip is the starting position from the initial cross, which is why I was trying to get that pause to happen there. That she is, again, anyone that was able to watch the presentation that I did last week, in that moment, she's defending space, not defending the goal. So she's in a central starting position, which allows her to be balanced with her movement across her goal. I think in that, especially if you're working in the youth game, that scenario will play out and the goalkeeper will be right by their near post because they're worried about getting beaten by their near post. So now they've literally got maybe 6 yards of movement to get across to that deep bending away ball. So because her starting position is so positive, it's now just a 1.5 yard little shuffle to get in line with the shot. We talk about their set position a lot, and it's different in varying scenarios. So I wasn't really looking at it, but her set position should be a little wider, with her hands a little wider than maybe normal. And then obviously the physical component of reacting and diving is there. But when I break down stuff like that with Ash, it's where is she when the initial ball is played, when the initial cross has happened. That allows for a big movement to be a short movement, if that makes sense. Like if her positioning is off there, then it's a really heavy movement to get across a goal. But because her start position is pretty positive, it actually allows her to be balanced throughout every movement. Maybe you can play the clip again, and that will open, just because we love the music on it so much. Yeah, so hopefully that starting position piece opens people's eyes a little bit. Like I think, so especially like if you're working with youth goalkeepers, all they'll see is the save. All they'll see is the reaction save. They don't actually see the prep work before that. And I'd actually say that I think Ash can be higher in that starting position there. From where the ball's delivered from, she can stay in that central spot, but be maybe 3 yards off her line to protect that space, as it's a left footer outswinger that's being delivered. So yeah, no, it is. I don't know if rewarding's the right word to use as a coach to see a goalkeeper making saves like that. I think because I see like the coach player as more of a collaboration. Like at the end of the day, it's them performing the things that you're pointing out to them. But it is great to be able to go, this is what we talk about all the time. This is why we talk about it, and this is why you're able to make that save. So yeah, that is the fun part of coaching, I guess.
Last one for me, and then I'll open it up to the experts here that's got all the questions for you. When you talk about that relationship between player and goalkeeper, you talk about physical differences, talking about the difference at the professional level. I suppose the age range of the player, the experience of the player also means that there's going to be some back and forth. I suppose what I want to ask you is where do you and Ashlyn have, I suppose, not disagreements, but like lively discussions on, is it like stuff like technical things, or is it stuff about coming off lines, distribution decisions? Where do those conversations happen?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times I would say the raw discussions are on maybe decisions that are made within games. Because there might be something that I'm looking at on film and she's seen a different picture from her perspective within the goal. So, and then it might even open my eyes a little bit, because she'll be like, well, the reason that I was here was this, or the reason that I was there was that. Now, sometimes it might be a bullshit excuse. Sorry for the language. It might be well, I'm there because I'm thinking she might shoot. Well, she ain't going to shoot there. Like, she's right over by the sideline. So defend the space. So I think there are discussions that we have about that. The technical side, like, I think we've worked with each other for so long. We both have a similar way of looking at how you execute certain things. And if I do introduce a new technique or a new reasoning behind doing something, as long as there is a reasoning and I can show benefits from doing it that way, then there's always massive buy-in. Something as simple as like coming and punching a ball. I'll just be like, well, look, here's how De Gea does it. Here's how Ter Stegen's doing it. Here's how this guy's doing it. Look at the success they're getting from it. By no means saying that, Ash, you're going to be able to come for across and punch at the halfway line like some of those guys can. But can you get success from replicating a similar action? So yeah, as long as there's a backup behind that introduction of something new, then there's buy-in. And then as far as breaking down video, it's just always a really honest discussion. And we both know that we're not going to get upset about one's reasoning. At the end of the day, like, we're doing it because we want to get results. So yeah, and honestly, mate, I really enjoy it when there is a kickback at times, because it tests me on what I've seen, and it tests me on my philosophies towards certain situations. So I do really enjoy that part.
Brilliant. Okay, John has asked, how do you plan a session of work themes? Do you do game trends or preference of working through a logical process?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the process is always geared towards the opponent. So for the majority of the time, like, if they score from certain trends, then we're obviously going to build into that throughout a week or 2 weeks leading into that. And I mean, you know yourself, Gary, that there's certain trends within our league that you're going to see in the majority of games. So is there a way that I can sneak little snippets into just a general weekly plan? So yeah, I would say that the majority of it is geared towards what we are likely to see with that opponent at the weekend, and that's how I kind of structure it from there.
Scott Gaynor, for match day warm-ups, is it the same routine every week, or do you vary the exercises depending on the opposition, or would this depend on input from goalkeepers that you're working with?
Yeah, so Scott, we have the same warm-up that we go through, and this, I don't know what environment everyone's working in, but for me, in the match day warm-up, I mainly just worry about the starting goalkeeper. The other goalkeepers kind of do their own thing, or if we're at home, I'll have my volunteer assistant like warm up the 2 and 3. But yeah, we have the same structure that we do. So we'll do a bit of passing, then we'll do some handling in the goal, then we'll go into a diving sequence, then we'll go into crossing, and then blah 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 blah. But within that, if Ash is like wants to put a different variation on something, like sometimes she'll want to do like reactions, like in the goal where I'm hitting it hard over her shoulders and she's tipping it over the bar, or she'll want to move into an angle differently than she does. So there is a common warm up that we do, that we kind of follow those progressions, but there is manipulation within those progressions at times, and like I touched on, like sometimes in Orlando, if we're playing at 3 o'clock because the league's decided to make a game kick off at 3 o'clock in Orlando in the middle of summer, we might go, all right, we're skipping that part. So we might, if there's a handling progression, yeah, I don't need that. We might do less reps on the dive in. We might take less crosses and get in the AC sooner, because that's what she needs at that point. I mean, another thing to consider is if we've played Wednesday, Saturday, or we're playing Wednesday, Sunday, or we've had less of a lead in, their body may feel sorer, or they might not just want to be out there as long. So yeah, there is a structure, but it gets manipulated depending on what that goalkeeper is feeling within that moment. And I think another point of that is, and Portland's a great example. Like when you go to Portland, like they're on turf, and it's the turf that the bounce is a little interesting at times. So like when we go to Portland, we might do more dip in services where I'm on top of the 18 and I'm bouncing balls in, or when I'm doing crosses, I might serve some out for the goalkeeper that isn't working to head downwards, just so that they get a feel of that bounce within there. So that would be another thing that might dictate on, the surface. That will dictate on maybe progressions or different things that we do within our warm-up.
Sheppo was asked about balancing the fitness level of the keeper who isn't playing. You mentioned about the priority being number one. Well, how do you make sure the number two isn't going further and further away?
Yeah, it's It's difficult, but like the way that I would describe it is that recovery session where, like, if our starter has played, that recovery session is like a real great opportunity for me to build on my relationship with that goalkeeper and build on their weaknesses. But then there's also like we'll stay behind after training with our 2 and 3 and work on things, and you know that there might be players that want to do shooting, so they'll maybe get extra reps within the shooting. I think the one thing that is really tough within the NWSL is there is no reserve league with a lot of teams, or a lot of contracted players are not allowed to play in the reserve leagues. So finding game minutes is really scarce for backup goalkeepers. Like, you might have some backup goalkeepers that in a 2-year period don't play a single game. So it's really hard to develop that game management, that game sharpness. So I think, going back to your point on the Pepe Reina clip, I think it is really important to try and incorporate those decisions within your training session. And on reflection, that's something that I think I need to do better at within my sessions, is spend less time on the technical stuff and the feel good stuff, and more time on the, well, what could you have done differently kind of sessions.
How often do you involve the goalkeepers in rondos, small-sided games?
Yeah, a lot. Like, there'll be days that we'll go out, and while they're doing their warm up with poles or ladders or whatever the strength and conditioning coach is doing for their warm up, I'll take the goalkeepers and do something goalkeeping specific, and then the team is into rondos. So the goalkeepers will be involved in that. Normally at the ends of the rondos, there'll be the pivot player almost. So yeah, we incorporate our goalkeepers into that a lot. But as far as being in a small-sided game and dribbling and passing and moving, they're not involved in that. But in the rondos or the keeper way, they're normally the end players, because that is a visual that the goalkeepers get within their games. I think it's good as well, because too often I think the goalkeepers are away by themselves for 40 minutes and they jump in with the team for 20 minutes. Like, if you're spending 2/3 of your week away from the team, it's so easy to create that distance and not build a stronger relationship as you could with your back line or whoever within the team. So yeah, I think it's imperative that the keepers get involved in that sort of stuff.
You covered a wide range of topics and areas to work on there at the start of the presentation. Ronan McGann has asked about, for teams that are not in the full-time environment, how do you recommend they focus or prioritize on the most important things? What are the most important things?
So like a part-time team, how do they like plan their week essentially and what they want to work on?
Yeah, if you've got two sessions a week with your goalkeeper, where would you put your time?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question, because you can look at it two ways, right? And I think it depends on the age of the team as well. But you can either do it kind of like I do, where I look at the opponent and I kind of scale back from there, like from the future game, and plan back. Or you can look at that individual's needs, like what do they want to work on, and then prioritize what they want to work on within that. But like, I feel like now, some of the creative sessions that goalkeeper coaches are coming up with, you can incorporate 3 or 4 topics within one session. So I think there is a place for a session that is a handling session or a dive-in session, whatever. Like, there is a place for that. But I think the key, if you're restricted on the amount of field time that you have your goalkeepers, is developing a session that incorporates 3 or 4 techniques. Or 3 or 4 phases of play that now you might see across, but you might also see a shot from distance and handling, however you draw up that session. So yeah, I think if you can hit 3 or 4 topics, that's your prioritizing done, because you've covered 8 things in those 2 sessions that you get a week.
Brilliant. Jeff has asked, are your days off completely off, or are there some physical minimums that the players have to do?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the players on that day off will do like yoga or something light. I mean, at the end of the day, if they wanted to go out and do extra, they could. Like, I would openly invite my goalkeeper that isn't going to play at the weekend, that if they wanted to do a session on that Wednesday, that I would. Because I know that essentially the number, let's say the number three Saturday is really an off day for him. Some Saturdays I'll go in the morning and do sessions with our goalkeeper that isn't on the roster. But yeah, I think. Sorry, I've completely lost my train of thought here. What was the question again? Lost my train of thought completely. What I was baffling on about.
I think it was about
managing the loads on a day off. That was it. Yeah, like I wouldn't. I mean, our guys are pros, so it's not as much of a concern what they're doing. Like, I mean, one concern is how they're fueling themselves. Like, are they eating right? Are they drinking right when they're not in our environment? Like, and it's different at every club. But in Orlando, we're pretty fortunate. We give them breakfast. They train. We give them post-training food as well, so we can manage it somewhat. Like, we're obviously not managing how much they put on their plate, but at least we're giving them things that will be beneficial that they can put on their plate. So that would be the biggest concern for me on days off, is how they feel in themselves, how are they recovering, especially if, like I said, Tuesday was a really heavy day, Wednesday's our day off, and they don't recover and they don't look after themselves well enough on that day off, then Thursday might be a bit touch and go for them at times.
Well, people have asked on the mental situation. Obviously, goalkeepers get battered if they make a mistake, and how can a coach help their player, either pick them up or get the mental skills to deal with it?
Yeah, I think it is. It's one of the greatest challenges for goalkeepers and goalkeeper coaches, is managing that side of the game. From a coach's point of view, I would say that getting to know your individual goalkeeper and what makes them work is the greatest tool that you'll have as a coach. Because like for instance, if Ash made a mistake, there's no point in me calling her out on the mistake in front of people or there and then, because she's not going to respond that way. She responds better if I pull her to the side or we do video afterwards and we break it down from there. Like, that's a better response. Like Haley last year, like, we would go and get a coffee together and talk about things, because it was like she was so stressed out with the pressure of performing each Saturday that it was better for me to take her away from our training facility and have a coffee with her and talk about life and talk about how she's feeling and stuff like that. So yeah, I would say that the psychological part is everyone has their own way of coping with things as a player. And sometimes me being there, are you all right? How you feeling? That's just going to play with their mind more. So yeah, I think it's all about understanding what is the best way that your goalkeeper responds. And that is going to be a process over a season, over 2 seasons, 3 seasons. I think it's constantly evolving depending on what's going on in their life at that moment. So yeah, just finding out what makes them tick is the big one.
Okay, last one for me, and then if someone wants to throw up another question, go for it. I know you. I don't know if you're still working at the club, but I know you've done a lot at the youth level as well. Observing sessions, when you go and see a goalkeeper session and you shake your head and say, that's a disaster. What should players or coaches remove from their sessions, in your opinion, to make them better and more effective?
How long you got, Gary? I mean, I'd start with this. Like, if you're the biggest comments that I get back from coaches when I've been like a director of goalkeeping or when I've been in with a youth club for a long time is like, man, like Sam, he he just doesn't make good decisions on breakaways. Or Sarah, she's not coming for crosses. Well, I think too many youth coaches spend too long working on a technique to deal with that scenario rather than a decision to deal with that scenario. And I think that, like, I mean, I always say this, like, if you can catch a ball like with your elbows like this every time, 100 times out of 100, that is not a technique that is taught, but it is an individual characteristic that you've learned how to deal with a certain situation. So I think too often as youth coaches, goalkeeper coaches try and make the goalkeepers look how they want a goalkeeper to look, and they want a goalkeeper to deal with situations. And it takes the individuality away from the position, which I think is super important with goalkeeping, is having your own style and having something noticeable about you as a goalkeeper. I don't want to take that away from my goalkeepers. Because if they have a weird way of doing something, but it works for them, why change it? And I think like a great example is De Gea. Like, people when he first came to the Premier League are commenting on how often he uses his feet to make saves. Well, he's effective at it. He makes the save. The ball isn't going in the net. It's not like he's sticking his foot out and the ball's rolling over his foot and going in the goal. He's making saves from it. He's keeping the ball out of the net. He's making match-winning saves, using a form of keeping the ball out of the net that works for him specifically. Now, I think that is such the case that other goalkeepers have started going, holy cow, like, can I bring this into my game? And like some of the conversations that I've had, like with other coaches, is someone said, like, what is a technique? Like, technique is just technique of goalkeeping. That's just something that somebody's come up with at some point, like way back. Doesn't mean that is the way to do it. Like, there is a way to do open heart surgery, right? There has to be a procedure that you follow to do open heart surgery. Otherwise, there's going to be some pretty damaging effects, right? But in goalkeeping, there is so many ways that you could deal with making a save. Like, you can make a save with your head every time if you wanted to, and be effective at it. So I think it's about finding their own way of doing things. And I think too often within youth coaches, they don't allow that to happen because they want it done a specific way. And their sessions have a lot of lines, and their sessions have minimal decision making, and they spend time prioritizing the wrong areas of the game, in my opinion. So yeah, that was a very long answer for what could have been a very short answer. But yeah, prioritize the decision over the technique would be my advice.
Brilliant. Samantha, we'll sneak one more in. Hey Lloyd, Sam here. You only know one Sam. What do you miss about coaching youth players, if anything?
So the biggest part that I miss about, and I've just started again on the youth side in January. I started with Orlando City's youth program, doing their goalkeepers. So the part that I miss the most is seeing the growth, because like in the pro game, like you will definitely see growth. But it's not as dramatic as you see from a 9-year-old to a 12-year-old, for instance. Like, it's so rewarding for me when you see a kid go on their journey and they're doing things that you were like, wow, you never would have been able to do that. Sorry, my kid. Hi.
Hello.
All right, get out of here, you little rascal. Sorry about the interruption. I think the youth game is so rewarding because you see the light bulb go off at some point, like something that you've been working on for ages and ages and ages, and they've not got it, and you're trying to get them to figure out how to do it their way, and they do it, and it's so rewarding. That is really what I missed about the youth game. I think, like, honestly, like any time that you can get around people and have an effect on their life, super rewarding. Like, I mean, Sam's a prime example. Like, I think I coached Sam when she was 15, 16, and she went off to college and did what she did. But like, when people like reach out to you or you bump into someone and they remember you, like, that's super rewarding for me. Whereas the pro game is more about results than it is necessarily about the journey. Now, I do think there is a journey that happens in the pro game, for sure there is, and some of the experiences I've had with my pro goalkeepers have been life changing. But like, the journey with the youth players is a lot more fun.
Do you think the NWSL could? I spoke to someone about this last month. It could be easier, or there could be more opportunities for growth for those younger players by the reserve. You're saying those circumstances, the reserve league, getting those, more game time, more experiences for the players that are just coming out.
Yeah, I think it's massively needed, because I mean, Aubrey Bledsoe is a great example. So that stat, when I was talking about Ash with her kicking and she got injured, well, then Aubrey had to step in. She hasn't played a game in 2 years. She's maybe played minimal minutes. It probably took her 2 or 3 games to like get a mojo back, I guess would be one way of putting it. Get her vibe back, start feeling herself. Now, if she'd have been playing reserve games, then maybe that wouldn't have took so long, or maybe those first 3 performances would have been cleaner because there'd been regularity in the decisions. But like, it's really hard, man. And I think we lose a lot of talented players that could grow in our environment. That, I don't blame them. Like, it's better to go play in Europe and play games and build a reputation that way than it is to stay and sit on the bench or not even make rosters. I think there needs to be an avenue for minutes to happen, because I think the big difference between the NWSL and let's say like England or Germany or France is, in France, if you play for Lyon, there are probably 5 games that you can probably look at and go, all right, we'll rest some players here, we'll rest this person, and that will give opportunities to the younger players. In the NWSL, like, I don't think you can, because every game is so competitive and every game means so much, that there's no wiggle room to rest players, because any team can beat any team on their day. So I think a reserve league would be great and would allow for more players to gain opportunities and be sharp when they get those opportunities, and also grow confidence. Like, if you're a forward and you're a young forward and you're playing in the NWSL and you're not scoring goals, and I don't know, like, maybe you get benched for a few games, you need to build your confidence up. Like, what a great avenue to go and do that, rather than you come off the bench and you've got to try and make an impact, and that be your way to get back in the team. Like, sometimes, like, a little step down is just what you need to get the saliva flowing again. So I mean, I would be massively in favour for having that in the league.
Brilliant. Hopefully in the future. But next step is getting you out in the grass. So I appreciate I appreciate you coming on. Hopefully, you'll be out there again soon. But if you ever want to come back on and educate the masses,
yeah, anytime, mate. Anytime. Like you said, it's just me and my toddler that just interrupts all my webinars that keeps me going at the moment. So yeah.
Brilliant. Lloyd, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. This was first class, and thanks to everyone else for coming on.
Thanks for joining, guys. And if anyone has any questions, like, please just find a way to reach out to me on social media or whatever, and I'm more than happy to help or discuss goalkeeping. So yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lloyd. Be safe.
See you later, guys.
Cheers.